If you are a motorist, you're one of over 300 million in the world today, driving 200 million motor cars, burning 130,000 million gallons of petrol every year. And yet what most of us know about this lifeblood of our car engine could fit on the head of a pin. Apart from always needing petrol, what do we know about it? We know there is a grade for our engine. We are told some brands have additives. We have an impression of an instant liquid, seldom seen, that comes conveniently like water out of a tap. No wonder we ignore petrol. It holds no surprises. It works every time. Everything conspires to make petrol seem terribly simple. Too simple. There are so many things that are not commonly known about petrol. That it is not one chemical compound, but a carefully blended mixture of hundreds of different compounds. That each compound has different properties and consequently a different function. That oil companies use these compounds in different ways in their brands of petrol. That petrol is not simply extracted from crude oil, but has to be manufactured from crude, as manufactured as the car engine is from crude metal. Car engines and petrol are made for each other, literally. In its liquid form, it is easily carried and contained. But as a liquid, it does not burn. Only as a vapor does petrol burn. The car engine burns a mixture of petrol vapor and air. The air is breathed into the carburetor. Coming into contact with the liquid petrol, the air breaks it up into a mist of droplets. This mist is drawn into the inlet manifold, where heat from the engine changes the liquid droplets into vapor. The mixture of petrol vapor and air burns in the cylinder, and exhaust gases are breathed out. The car engine is a heat engine. But the trouble is it's not always hot, nor is the air around it. A lot of the time, an engine is just warm. And sometimes it's positively cold. Yet to produce a mixture that will burn, sufficient petrol has to reach the combustion chamber as vapor, whether the engine is hot or cold. This is made possible by selecting and balancing the chemical compounds that make up petrol. They are all hydrocarbons, different combinations of hydrogen and carbon. Light hydrocarbons turn from liquid to vapor at lower temperatures. Heavy hydrocarbons need higher temperatures to make them vaporize. Petrol is a cocktail of hundreds of hydrocarbons that vaporize over a wide range of temperatures. From 220 degrees centigrade through intermediate temperatures down to minus 20 degrees centigrade. These are the temperatures that car engines work at. Petrol is tuned for engines, as much as engines are tuned for petrol, as finely tuned as the strings of a musical instrument. To find out how it is tuned, why it is made the way it is, we can divide it into 6 groups of hydrocarbons, 6 fractions. Take the heaviest hydrocarbons. They vaporize when the engine is hot and at its most efficient. Packing a lot of energy into a little size, the hydrocarbons in this fraction of petrol give very good fuel consumption on the motorway. However, too much of this heavy fraction causes problems. The heaviest of its compounds are liable to form deposits which clog up the inlet system. Also, when the engine is cold, the heavy fraction will not vaporize. As an unburnable liquid, it makes starting and warm-up difficult. And certainly, liquid petrol seeping past the piston rings and diluting the engine oil does not improve lubrication. These snags prevent the petrol tuner from putting more of this good motorway mileage fraction into petrol. What the cold engine does need for a good start is the lightest hydrocarbons, the light fraction. It vaporizes well below freezing point. Being so volatile, it saves using the choke, and so saves fuel. A lot of the lightest fraction would seem to be an advantage. But there is a limiting factor. Too much of the lightest fraction causes a problem called vapor lock. Vaporizing so easily, it can, particularly on warm days, become vapor too soon in the fuel lines. Bubbles of vapor give the engine hiccups, interrupt the fuel supply, and reduce engine power. And when a hot engine is turned off, this light fraction can boil in the carburetor, percolate into the manifold, and prevent restarting. Vapor lock prevents the petrol tuner from putting more of the good cold start fraction into petrol. These amounts of the lightest and heaviest fractions satisfy the engine's needs at its highest and lowest temperatures, but they are limited by the problems they cause. The remaining fractions vaporize at temperatures in between. The middle ranges have their own vital part to play. They warm up the engine and bring it as quickly as possible to maximum efficiency. But here too, there is a problem: carburetor icing. When petrol vaporizes, it draws heat from its surroundings and lowers their temperature. If it vaporizes too rapidly, it can make the surrounding parts so cold that water vapor, which is always present in the air, condenses as ice on critical surfaces, such as the throttle plate. Ice here restricts airflow to the engine, making it stall or run and idle roughly. So carburetor icing prevents the petrol tuner from putting more of the good warm-up fractions into petrol. Their proportions are therefore set, as were those of the heaviest and lightest fractions. The remaining fractions have to fall in with the pattern to ensure that vaporization is even through the whole range. A modification, a tuning adjustment, is made in winter and in cold countries. More of the volatile fractions are added. In summer and in hot countries, less of the volatile fractions are added. The final gallon of petrol, each fraction individually tuned to the temperatures car engines work at. Proportions determined by experiment and experience that cater for all driving conditions. Blend them together and you have the mixture you buy on the forecourt. But why are there different grades? Because engines aren't all the same. One in particular needs a special grade of fuel, the high compression ratio engine. It is a more efficient engine, but without the right fuel, it makes a knocking sound. Why? By compressing the air-fuel mixture into a smaller space, here by using a round-headed piston, it produces more power from a given amount of fuel. A normal combustion, though it lasts only 0.003 of a second, spreads smoothly through the mixture. But when an engine is knocking, it means that an abnormal combustion is occurring. Combustion starts correctly, but the remaining mixture ignites prematurely. Increasing the compression makes engines more prone to knocking. Instead of a powerful push, the piston head suffers a hammer blow. Continued driving with the engine knocking can lead to overheating and consequent damage to the piston. The petrol designer prevents knocking by making what are called high-octane fuels. Without affecting their basic volatility tune, he has to strengthen each fraction of hydrocarbons against knock. There are two ways of doing this. By injecting anti-knock additives, such as compounds of lead, and by extra refining, restructuring the long hydrocarbon chains into stronger, more compact ones. Particular attention is paid to the light hydrocarbons, which, unless treated, are inclined to cause knocking during acceleration. But all the fractions have to be strong to withstand the taxing conditions of a full load with a hot engine. It is only when both extra refining and anti-knock additives are used together that knock is economically countered in all makes of car. The right grade of petrol for a car is the one on which it will run without knocking under all driving conditions. A low-octane fuel is right for a low-compression engine. The higher the compression ratio, the higher the octane quality required. High-octane petrol is more expensive to make and therefore to buy, but this is offset by lower fuel consumption. Anti-knock is one of several additives laced into petrol. They're the result of many years' research into ways of improving performance. There is an anti-icing additive for protection against carburetor icing. It prevents ice sticking to metal and lowers the freezing point of water. The other additives fight deposits in the fuel system and the engine. In the life of a car, about 6,000 gallons of petrol and 36 million gallons of air pass through its system. They carry minute traces of impurities which burn and slowly form deposits. Gum and sulfur, engine oil and lead anti-knocks all contribute. Specific additives attack specific deposits. A storage inhibitor prevents gum from forming in the petrol before it reaches the engine. If lead anti-knocks are used, they cause deposits in the combustion chamber. Mixed with them, therefore, is a scavenger additive to keep deposits down. A detergent additive prevents excessive deposits from forming in the inlet system. Deposits on sparking plugs are a particular menace. They can cause the spark to be conducted away from the spark gap. Ignition control additive affects the deposit that forms on spark plugs, damping it down to prevent glowing. Additives used in minute quantities allow both engine and petrol to deliver their full potential. The complete petrol. But petrol is never complete. Today it is different from 30 years ago. Inevitably, it will be different again tomorrow. The exhaust end of the petrol story is changing now. In the past, the engine has been clean at some cost to the atmosphere. The small quantities of airborne pollution each car produces have become a major problem in certain areas as the number of cars has continued to increase. Solutions are being sought by both engine and petrol designers. There are engineering answers, such as fuel injection, which gives more precise control over the fuel entering the engine. Air injection, which burns away unwanted emissions. Dual manifold carburetors, one part for slower running and a second for normal running. Catalytic reactors on the exhaust system, which render noxious gases harmless using a catalyst. If this method is to be efficient, lead, the most economical way of countering knock, will have to be reduced. How will it be compensated for? By more highly refined and expensive fuel? Or reducing the compression ratio of engines? Or both? Whichever methods are adopted to solve the problem of pollution, they will be expensive. Research has to find the cheapest effective answer, the one we can best afford. This, after all, has always been the aim of the oil company, the job of the petrol designer, to find satisfactory compromises between conflicting needs. to find solutions that are effective but economical. He's always been able to provide a petrol almost perfect in every respect. Unfortunately, not enough could be made for everybody, and not many motorists could afford it. Instead, he provides the more complicated alternative, the unassuming compromise. A mixture that meets many specifications, suits all cars and all pockets. Petrol will never stay one thing. It will go on changing to meet the times. We'll still call it petrol, and we'll still take it for granted.